Hey guys, Jesse here with the DJ Cafe with another awesome tutorial. So today I'm going to be talking about exporting video, and this largely applies to Premiere Pro, After Effects, and just about anything. Because what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go above and beyond and actually go in a little depth about actual file formats, codecs, what does it all mean, which will just help you guys in general learn about file formats and their types and help you be able to export files properly in any program, not just Premiere Pro. Like usual, I guess this should be my slogan. You're not going to find any of that crap you're searching for when you look on Google. This is going to be nice and straightforward, and it's actually going to really help you guys just to build your knowledge in general while using Premiere Pro or After Effects. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so let's get started with explaining what a codec is. A codec is essentially something that decompresses or compresses data streams within files. So in film, what that means is basically you're encoding a certain video file and it's going to compress the data in our case. So let's say you have a raw file and it comes out at 5 gigabytes from your camera. So I mean that's pretty big. Say that's a minute of footage. So you run it through an exporter and you use a codec such as H.264, and that same file comes out with the same quality, except the size is only 1 gigabyte now. You've just saved like a lot of space by using a codec. So that's a little example of basically what a codec's function is. So I want you guys to go to Google. We're gonna get a tool now that's gonna help you guys out a lot if you're doing a lot of film and stuff. I want you to download K-Lite Codec Pack Mega, and just type in File Hippo at the end there. It's a site we're going to download it from. So just click on this first one here from filehippo.com. Go ahead and click download latest version, and just wait a second, it's going to pop up. So right click here and download the file. Alright, so when that's downloaded, go ahead and click run. I'm just going to guide you through the installation here. So first you're going to select advanced mode and install it to wherever you install it. I just recommend leaving this as its default. So the first thing here in this menu, just make sure player, just uncheck player, because we're not going to install any type of video players. We're just going to use the video players you already have, because I'm sure you either have QuickTime or Windows Media Player will do just fine, or even VLC player. So if that's not right at the top, don't worry about it. Just look through the list and you'll find something that says player. Just uncheck it. Just click next. Next. This is okay. Click next. This is okay. Here it's going to ask you what to create file associations for. And yeah, just check Windows Media Player, or if there's any other players here, check all of them. Here say select all video, select all audio. And that's basically what it's going to select file extensions for that you'll be able to play with the media players you selected in the previous list. Just click next. Here again, thumbnails, just select all. Next. So here's your speaker setup. So you can just read here and it'll just match your speaker setup. So I have 2 speakers and a subwoofer, so that's stereo plus subwoofer. Deselect this crap. No thanks, I don't want any of this garbage. And just go ahead and install it. Okay, and when it's finished, just click finish. Get rid of this page that pops up, and you're done. So the reason we installed that program, it's got quite a little interesting feature here. So we can find it in here. And this media info. So now this is where I'm getting at when we're going to get down to Premiere Pro and After Effects and exporting. That media info is an important tool. So go to a media file you have, any video file, MPEGs, QuickTime files, anything. So I'm just going to go up here and I got a .mov file. So when I right click now, I have this added bar here, media info. I can open that up, and this is a really nice detailed list of info about that particular video file. And we're going to use this list to help us choose the best exporting options for Premiere Pro or After Effects or any program. Alright guys, it's getting exciting now. So now we're halfway to learning what the best export settings are. Alright, with that awesome tool handy now, let's go ahead and open Premiere Pro. We're going to practice exporting a file, and it can be anything you have, so don't worry about it. Okay, so the important thing to note here, it doesn't matter what sequence settings I just selected. If you're running CS6, let's bring an item out. So let's use this same file here. Let's bring this into Premiere Pro. And let's bring it over here. So it's going to ask you if you want to change the sequence settings to basically match the file you're using. So always say change sequence settings. Okay, so now I got this particular file here, so I'm not going to do anything to it. Let's just go ahead and export it. So here's where the fun starts. So let me teach you guys a little bit about the exporting settings now. So how do you know which settings are better? You can say match sequence settings, but to be honest, I'm looking at this right now. The output is telling you the type of file you're going to put it out in. I can see my source of my file is 1920 by 1080. It's got a 1:1 square pixel ratio. It's 23 frames per second. It's progressive. Blah, blah, blah. What does that all mean? Well, you can see the output. It doesn't match that at all. First of all, it's putting it out to a .avi when we can clearly see my file is a .mov. So it says match sequence settings, but that doesn't look like it matches at all. It's also going to put it out at 720 by 576, which will look like crap, whereas I can clearly see here it's 1920 by 1080 HD. So match sequence settings, I just want you guys to know that is not to be misconcepted with matching your file settings. Matching sequence settings in Premiere Pro matches just what it says, the sequence that you pick, which might not necessarily exactly match to your video. So that's where this tool comes in handy. The way we're going to select the right settings here is by using this media info. So we're going to right click on the file that you want to export. And this is, of course, keeping in mind, we're assuming that all the files we're working with, because of course we're not going to usually bring one file in and export it. We're going to have a whole sequence here. This is, of course, assuming that they're all the same. If they're not the same, a generalized rule of thumb is that you're gonna want to go by the file that has the most of the same kind in there. So if you have like 10 of, say, this kind of file right here, the .mov files, and then maybe you have one .mpg file. Well, you're not gonna use these settings to set it to an MPG when everything else is .mov, because basically when you encode it, it's gonna encode that last .mpg to match the rest. So you're gonna go by the file you have the most. So let's go back here and let's take a look at the media info. This is going to tell us how we're going to export it. So the important things here that we're going to look at is the format profile is a QuickTime file. Okay, so right away, let's go for our format. Let's pick QuickTime, because we now know that the format profile is a QuickTime file. So once we know the format, what about the codec used? So we got QuickTime selected here. We're not going to go to presets. So down here is where you select all your custom settings for your video file. So let's say this was up on its whatever. So to figure out the video codec used, go back to here, and it's not format profile, it's actually format. This is actually talking about the codec used to compress this file. So we can see the original codec used is an MPEG-4. So we're going to want to keep that the same. So we got QuickTime selected. We're going to go to video codec and look for MPEG-4. So we got that here. We're going to select that. And the rest of it's pretty straightforward. I mean, quality, that's of course pretty straightforward. We're going to keep that, for me, I'm going to keep it at 100 unless you don't need it at 100. The width and the height, that's the easiest to find. Again, that's just going to be your width and height here. So we can scroll down here to your width and height. Do not use original height. Original height is usually referring to what your camera was capable at shooting at. The actual width and height are going to be just right here. So you got 1920 by 1080. So 1920, and it should automatically, if you need to, unselect basically to constrain the proportions. So 1920 by 1080. So now we got the output right. Scroll down a little more. Now we're gonna match these settings. So to find these settings, go on in here. So frame rate, again, pretty straightforward. We can find our frame rate right here, and our frame rate, sorry, right here, and it just happens to be 23.976, so that's okay. Now the aspect ratio. So for the aspect ratio, you actually don't necessarily need to use this to find it. If you go to your source right here, it's going to tell you right here, this little bracketed number 1.0, that's your aspect ratio. So You can also see here, see if I set it to something that's actually wrong, you're going to get black borders, and it's not going to come out properly when you render the video. So you can see I can pretty much select any other setting there, and it's not looking quite right. But if I select the 1:0 ratio, which is square pixels, I get a perfect fit. So that solves that. Render at maximum depth is generally going to output a better video quality. Visually wise, it's going to be better quality. It's just going to take longer to encode, so we're definitely going to want to set that because it's going to make it look better. Here, I don't mess with these too much. I don't know too much about keyframe every so often frames, but I do know it can be important. You might want to research that a bit yourself. This one right here, limit data rate, you can basically, if you select this and set it to a certain amount, you can see that it's going to actually come out with an estimated file size rather than not telling you. So again, here I wouldn't really touch this. I mean, I know generally for an HD video, you can set about 120,000 kilobytes per second to get a pretty good looking file, but we're going to leave that unchecked, which is going to let the Premiere Pro itself handle that. When it comes to audio, leave it uncompressed. I find that to be the best setting. Sample rate, you're going to match whatever you use. Generally, most things are going to be at around 48,000 hertz, and you're going to set the sample size to 32-bit for the best quality. Alright, so all that just about covers all your basic exporting settings. I hope that helped you out and explained a bit about codecs. So basically, let me just say a couple more things here. So these settings we just picked out and everything, that's pretty much a basic overview of how you'd export files for use on your computer. So this video is getting a little lengthy though, so I'm going to go into a part 2 and make an advanced exporting video, and in there I'll talk a little more in depth about you know, what might happen when you have 2 or more video files, the best settings, and more specifically, let's get into the big one that everyone wants to know. What's the best file for uploading to YouTube? And also, not only that, what's the best method for exporting your video into that file? And anyway, thanks for watching. I'll get into what I'm talking about in the next video. Go ahead and click the link to watch the advanced exporting tutorial. And like the video if it helped you out. Thanks.